Dear students, this class is a revision of what I have been telling you in picture perception discussion test, which we call as a very important part of screening. See, what is picture perception discussion test? Now, before we rush to that, let me take you back to the conception of the thought of why this screening in process came up. You have to understand that. I always say that go into the purpose, you will know what to do. So once you know the purpose, then you know what role you have to do. Is it understood? For example, the purpose of anything, if it is evident, then you will automatically do it properly. For example, you've gone into a field to participate in a game where you are supposed to play against the opposite team. You have to identify the purpose. Is it a training game? Is it a match? If it is a training game, what are you going to do? You're going to try different techniques. You're going to use the opposite team to develop cooperation with your team, to make sure that you work well with the team. But suppose the purpose of the game is for winning the match and not creating practices or cooperation, then your purpose will be different. So once your purpose is clear, you automatically will do well. Is it clear? Suppose you're sitting and studying and you have a purpose to complete it today itself. So your speed, your focus will be in different level. So the same thing I explain you. Please understand what is the purpose of this filtering or screening in process. When I had given my SSB way back in 1990, we were never facing the screening because we used to go and everybody used to give their complete SSB, and some of us were getting selected and some of us were being sent back, but that used to always happen after 5 days, on the 6th day, after 5 days or so. With the first day we used to have psychology test, right? First day was reporting, second day was psychology test, then third day was GTO1, fourth day was GTO2, fifth day was conference, and then the result used to come out, and many of us used to stay back for the medical. But when the government realized that a lot of people are staying there and they are becoming a financial burden to the organization and they are not to the standard to be made an officer, the Defense Institute of Psychological Research, which works under the DRDO, when they identified that we are not going to keep such long, why not we do one thing, that at least filter out some people so that we have less numbers. So here came your screening process. Now in screening process, they added a reasoning test. Why? You should understand this. The reasoning test is to identify how quickly you grasp a situation. You know that reasoning test can be prepared by different set of questions and different set of pattern of thoughts. So if it can be prepared, then why is it being implemented if they want to see the uniqueness? No. It is only to check whether you can understand, grasp fast, quickly react, quickly decide. You have your mind in place, you have good thinking, you are able to understand what is being said, you are able to apply it. That is what reasoning test's purpose is all about. So when you do a lot of practice, you automatically understand the code. Okay, like classification series, you understand, okay, this is classification, this will be done, so this will be done. That means you have identified what is to be done and you are quick enough to implement it. Similarly, you are given a code, like hockey game has been written in an anagram manner. Ups and downs, the alphabets have been changed and they tell you to write a last letter of the word which makes it a word of game, and you change it to hockey and then you say why. So what are you doing? You are organizing in your mind. So what are they checking? That your mind is able to read and mind is able to quickly implement. There are some people who have very, very slow radars, ineffective radars. They're not able to understand, and even if they do understand, they take a lot of things and they are not able to react quickly, not able to decide quickly. And this is going to be unfortunate if we are going to make them the officers. So that is why reasoning test is to identify the different patterns of thinking, which you can get it in books like Aryan's Sijwali, Verbal Nonverbal, Chand Publication, R.S. Agrawal, Verbal Nonverbal, and many other books, of course. And these days, a lot of books on OIR intelligence has come up. We have also compiled a workbook which is coming soon in front of you. You can utilize it. But that will only expose you to a certain stereotype thoughts of thinking and you can master it. Now you will say, sir, we have learned that SSB is all about uniqueness, so I should not answer reasoning in a proper... Come on, I didn't apply it here. Reasoning is about understanding what should be the reasonable solutions as per the directions given and quickly implement it. Now suppose you are given earlier there was, two tests. One was a verbal test, one was a non-verbal test, and then this to identify. Now they have realized that why they're wasting time. After giving you an exposure of a verbal, non-verbal, what are the type of tests? Is they do that in a practice sort of exercise. They give you two tests. By giving you two tests, they are able to check your consistency. So the moment you are consistent in terms of performance in test number 1 and test number 2, they identify that you're good. And the moment you are good in that, they realize, okay, I think you are a good enough person, you can be picked up and you can understand quickly. That is the purpose of reasoning test. So what are you supposed to do? You have to gain your confidence in yourself by practicing it enough and thereafter multiplying your confidence. Now there are some people who lack confidence in themselves. They do not do a lot of thinking. They like to sleep over most of the time. They don't want to do any thinking. So what happens? When they are forced to think, they are not able to think. So thinking process is but essential for a leader, for an officer who has to take care not only of self but also of the troops. So if a person is not able to think, then the person will not be able to implement also. So that is the purpose of the reasoning test. Is it clear to all of you? So when you do that test, you will understand, okay, this is the pattern, we have to do this. This is the pattern, we have to do this. In case you are initially slow, please practice. Remember when you were born, you hardly spoke a word, but your parents made you practice word of I, Ma, Appa, and you slowly became good enough to understand not only the language, but also master it. So remember, nobody is born great. Their mind may be scared, but if you practice, the fear will go away. So reasoning test can be mastered and should be mastered. You should be able to quicken your speed so that in each of the tests, you are at least able to do 80 to 90% of the given questions appropriately. Possible. And since there is no negative marking, they say so and they believe so, yet it is scored in identifying how quick you are in grasping. So remember, this is not here alone. Even in the interview, they will give you a rapid fire test. There also they will check your grasping power. Grasping power is what? It is your sense of confidence in your intelligence and reasoning. Getting the point? So if you are able to accept that, okay, you can understand well and you can apply it well, and you are confident that this is it, you will do it. There are many people who practice reasoning tests, but when they go there, they try to recheck every question again and again, whether I'm right, whether I'm not right. And in the process, they are not able to attempt all of the questions, right? And in the process, they get very poor score. Not fair. You have to be accurate, but you have to practice speed also, so that you are able to do. Is it clear? This is the first part of reasoning test, and what is the purpose I have explained to you. Now we go down to the second part. Since all of you will be very soon attending SSB, it is very important that you understand the purpose. The second part is story writing. Now what do you mean by story writing? They'll show you a picture. There will be a number of characters and you will be told to identify them. How many did you see? You have to make dots. You have to put their gender along with them. If they're male, M. If they're female, F. And their mood. Now, there are some people who deliberately want to write positive stories. So, even if a person is crying, they deliberately write positive mood. Aren't you cheating? When you find that the person is crying, you can write a negative mood. So, now all this thing has to be written. Once this marking is done, then they tell that you should identify among all these character scene who's going to be a central character. Suppose you think that so and so is the central character, you're supposed to circle that. And once you do that circling, what do they check? They thereafter expect you that your story should concentrate on that person as the central hero who came forward, identified a problem and solved that problem. That is what they expect out of you. So, by quickly deciding who's going to be a central character, you are identifying the right set of thought process. I've always said that when you want to drive a car, you have to be in the driver's seat. So when you create a character, he should be appropriate to sit in the driver's seat. We will talk about this later, but first, you've understood about this character, central character? Okay. Now there are many people who say, sir, should we take the central character of our gender? Okay, if the option is there, why not? But if there is no option, like there are 4 girls shown and it is shown to boys, then you'll have to pick one of the girl as your central character. But if you are shown many boys, then and you are a girl, then you'll have to pick one of the boys as central character. Now you'll say, sir, then how will I reflect myself or how will I reflect my gender? See, today we are living in a modern society. Unmindful of gender, we basically are individuals and we have individual likings. So if we are a boy with certain amount of responsible nature, we only appreciate girl who is also equally responsible. We do not like to select a girl as our central hero who is irresponsible. This is the type of thought process we have. Suppose we are a male and we are economical and wise in our spending, we automatically select a girl as a relevant person because of our individual likings as the girl who is economical and wise in spending. We do not like a girl who is extravagant or wasteful in spending. Getting the point? So, deliberately forcing a gender when there is no choice will be artificial system, and many of you will land up becoming a victim to that situation, and thereafter you will say, why I did not get selected? When there was no choice, you had to pick up character. So maybe it is opposite gender, but I think in the opposite gender also, you have experienced your mother, you have experienced your sister, and in case of girls, you have experienced your father, you experienced your brother. So why can't you think of a opposite gender as well? Remember, in the armed forces, you'll be working shoulder to shoulder, both the genders. So you don't have to be gender specific alone as a rule. Yes, in case you have freedom to select between two and you are given the choice that there's a boy and male and girl and both of them are a general mood, you can pick the male because you're a male, you can pick the girl because you're a girl, you can comfortably write, can be a rule. But remember, thinking has no rule. Thinking has only one rule, that is logic and common sense, applying it among the choices given. Now, once you have decided a character, you can make it appropriate to the kind of seat, kind of driving. Imagine that you are given a Rolls Royce. So what kind of driver you will create? Somebody with a uniform? Imagine that it's a sports car, Mercedes. Then what are you going to do? You may make the owner as the driver. Am I right? But if you are given a truck, then you will have a different driver. So every time, as per the situation, as per the picture, the situation shown, the kind of background, the kind of characters shown, you should pick a character which is appropriate to that thing. Suppose you are shown a hospital, so what kind of character you should create? Doctor or a attendant to a patient? That will be more appropriate. So remember, creating an appropriate thought process. Why are you afraid of it? You would have done it normally, but because you have picked up different directions from different kind of YouTube channels, you put common sense and logic away. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Your common sense and logic is more important than any learning. And if you keep your common sense logic absolutely alert, you're getting selected. So this is one thing. Have you understood? Now in case you're given 4 or 5 characters and you're shown a picture and the background is identifying a plot, then think like that. For example, they show you 4 or 5 people, but they show you behind there is a field and there is a buffalo or there is a farmer working there. Then automatically the story would be with an agricultural background. You're having a background of some people working in the mountain. So you'll have to think of a mountaineer or somebody there near the mountains. If you're seeing the background of water, you may have to think of a person as a boatman. Am I talking something foreign? No, I'm talking something common sense and logical. So keep your common sense and logic alive, and you'll do well. So once you have identified the character, now you write a story. Now I have told about it in different sessions that how you perceive a story. If you perceive it negatively, you remember that old example which everybody was taught, that is half glass full, half glass empty. Now there are some people who see half glass full. That means it is considered a positive approach. But there are some people who see half glass empty. That means a negative approach. Similarly, there are some people who, by showing a picture, start crying as if a huge problem is there. But there are some people who look at the things shown as a situation and they do not panic. They do not become hyper about it. They coolly resolve it. That is what is called as commonsensical, logical and positive style of functioning. So the moment you take it positively and you write it, now comes the SOR approach. If you are shown a picture of anything and you start writing response, then where are you? Whenever you are shown a picture or anything, then you respond. Between this stimulus and response, that means what is shown to you and what you respond, there is someone hiding. Who's that? It's you. If you are there, then don't you think that while you see a situation and you respond, you have a thinking process between that? So if you have a thinking process between that, don't you think that should be expressed? For example, I'll give you that they've shown you an accident and then you show that there was a boy, he saw an accident, he immediately did this. Now why are you doing this? He immediately, before doing anything, he must have thought, what did he think? How did he perceive? That is also part of psychology. So if you write that when he saw an accident, he immediately realized that it is quite serious. The people who are involved in the accidents need immediate help and he should go there. So he immediately rushed. He also called his friends. Now that's okay, because here the thought process of yours is coming out. Why are you wasting an opportunity of expressing your own potentiality? So when you write these thoughts in between and thereafter your response, you do brilliantly well. The psychologist is able to identify you and thus is able to recommend you. Suppose I go somewhere and I don't speak a word and people are told to identify me, how capable I am. Will you be able to comment anything? Nothing at all. Will you select me? Of course not. And if you do, you are foolish. But yes, if I speak relevantly, whatever you asked me, and you find it relevant, wise, and I fall into the parameter of selection, you should. But if I don't express myself, then you will never and you should not. As simple as that. Any doubts? Now we come down to the second part. While you write the complete story, the story writing is an art. It is not artificial. I didn't say it is an artificial art. I said it's a natural art to express yourself. Suppose you ask me, how are you? And I say, what? I am what? Now look at my expression. You will not ask me next question. But if you ask me, how are you? And I say, well, I'm fine. Thank you so much. How are you? So the conversation will go on. Similarly, expression has to be smooth, relevant, and appropriate. So if you are relevant and appropriate in your expression of story, you fall well. Once this is done, then comes the second most important part, a very important part to check your communication ability, which is called the narration of the story. Now, narration has two purposes. Number one, of course, to check your communication, but also as a second purpose to check how you listen and absorb, how intelligent you are to absorb cues from others' narration. Because after all, you have a purpose thereafter of group discussion. So if while narrating you are all the time tensed about only your narration and you don't listen to other stories, I think you lack confidence. After you have written the story, you have submitted the story, you may get a break. Even if you don't get a break, you can always revise the story in your mental mind. But while people read out, you should get a small summary of what they've said, so that while discussion, that factual observation will help you in coming to a consensus. You'll be able to come to common conclusion because you'll be having knowledge that, okay, chess number 1 said this, second said this, third said this, fourth said this. I mean, may not be all of them, but some of them you will remember. So you'll be able to sum them up to come to a common conclusion or consensus, whatever you call it. So now this is one thing which is clear to all of you. I hope it is. So while you are narrating, they are looking at your communication level. Now, can narration be improved? Of course, by practice, yes. And what is to be done? You have to enjoy yourself. You have to enjoy yourself. You have to keep yourself relaxed, calm. So many times when I'm talking and I use my hands or other things, people say, sir, you're not calm. No, I am. But while teaching, it's my job to help you involve. And that's why while taking my classes always, well, by sitting or standing, I always tend to have this habit of expressing because my hand movements are there to check involvement of the students, not the patient, sorry, involvement of the students. Are they there? Are they not there? That is why I generally have this habit. But when I go and talk to other people, I generally remain calm. And you should. You don't have to copy my handshake movements. You have to be relaxed. And while reading out, you've done. After that comes the discussion part. Now in discussion, what is the purpose? To prove my story or to come to a common story? Many of you via the YouTube channels and other places learn to prove your story as the final story. I am giving you statistics. We have already covered 1250 plus officers. Many of you guys who always tried to push your story as final stories missed getting screened in because though their story was accepted, but they missed because their approach was wrong. Because you have not read the purpose rightly. You don't have to make your story the common story. You have to come to a common story. Imagine creating a house for your family. How will you do that? You will accommodate everyone's view. Your father wants a bedroom. Yes, he has a full right. You want a bedroom, you can suggest. Your sister wants a bedroom, you can suggest. You should have a guest room, you can suggest. This way, we will have a sum total of a good house, good kitchen, good washrooms, good living room, good entry, because you have included the points of all. Now, if you think that if you are supposed to create a house, you're going to decide everything, I'm sorry. No. When there are 22 odd or 16 odd sitting together, don't you think that you will have to accept others' ideas as well to come to a common story? So, the art of coming to a common story will speak volumes about your leadership. Many times people think that, sir, I will shout, I will say loudly, I will be the leader. No, we are not talking of rabble rousers. We are not talking of trouble creators. We are talking of leadership. Leadership has a very important element of called acceptability. If you are not acceptable by the other people in the group, then you can never be a leader. Now, how will you make them accept? Like the political leaders distributing things? No. Here, it is all about talking logical, appreciating others, talking logically, coming to conclusion, including other points, and creating a proper point. That is leadership. So the moment you will do that, you are on the right scale, you are performing rightly, and the officer, who is a very well trained analyst, will identify you and will screen you. So screening is all about that. Screening is about your good stories, good narration, and good discussion to come to a common story. But before that, they also identify your reasoning. Suppose you have done very poor in reasoning, the possibility of you getting screened in will be very, very poor. But in case you have done well, you fall into OIR 1 or OIR 2, that is not below 75 to 80% of reasoning score. I think you're getting screened in as per reasoning scale. Thereafter comes the second part of writing story. Your story should be sensible, understandable, and well said. Thereafter comes the part of narration. Your communication should be clear, it should be confident, it should have a reasonable voice, it should not be too long. I mean, there are some people who tell stories as if they are giving a sermon on Bhagavad Gita or sermon on any other religious text. We don't want that. We want you to be specifically concise and precise. Within 1 minute, that is around 30 to 40 seconds, is relevant to read out a story which you have written in 3 minutes or 4 minutes. Once you've done that, once you've done all this, then it comes to discussion, your attitude, your participation level, and your sense of camaraderie, your sense of confidence to accept all and to create consensus is what we are looking at. Once you do that, we are going to screen you in. The people who are very poor conversator or poor communicator, who are not able to express themselves properly, they are the people who miss out many times. There are some people who stammer while speaking, they miss out. The people who are looking scared in the group discussion, they miss out. So all you got to do is, you got to face it, that the group will have variety. Your job is to accept the variety, yet create common thing by including your wise observations of different perspectives and using your own thoughts and combining them into a complete whole. Is it clear? So this is the tip which I would revise, which I've already told you. And we have tried to teach you this very nicely by different paths. So listening to this lecture will only revise that, and you must. We are open to help you. We are going to help you with different things. Don't panic. It's one of the easiest selections. Yes, it is difficult if you pick the wrong path. If you pick the right path, it is one of the easiest selections possible. At least our students did feel so. Once they understood what is the purpose, they rightly behaved. Everybody is wise enough to adapt, but the purpose should be clear. So remember, screening is all about how you read out, how you confidently look. And remember one thing, one basic golden rule: never feel afraid of getting rejected. It shows in your eyes. So if you are afraid that I will not get screened in, it will show in your eyes, and the possible the fear factor will be well noticed by the evaluator and possibly will not screen you in. So just relax yourself, be calm, be confident. That is why I say practice. Nobody was born with. I mean, I took a lot of months. Unfortunately, I lost my mother very early, and later on, though my father remarried, that's a different story. But the first thing was I lost my mother very early, so there was no proper full-time teacher for me because mother is the first full-time teacher and friend, right? So what I did was I spoke late. So no one in this whole world comes learned. They all learn. Everybody evolves, and good learners evolve faster. So be a good learner, learn this art, become an officer, and make yourself proud. God bless you. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.